Today's Bhagavatam class is Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, the Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 10, and I switched it around. It should be the Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Unfortunately, I wrote all questions answered in the Bhagavatam. So, but I noticed that a little later that I made a little bit of a mistake there. And it's verse 41, which is all about the gunas, the modes of nature. Not so much about the gunas. Sattvam, Rajas, Tama, Iti, Tattvam Rajas Tama Iti, Tisra, Sura, Nrinarahaka, Tisra Sura Nrinaraka, Tatrapi, Ekai Kasho, Rajan, Tatrapi Eka Kaso Sho Rajan, Tatrapi Eka Kaso Sho Rajan, Vidyante Gatayas Trida, Vidyante Gatayas Trida, Yadaika Kataro, Nyabyam, Yadaika Kataro, Nyabyam, Swabhava, Swabhava, Upahantyate, Swabhava, Upahanyate, Satyam Rajas Tama Iti, Tisra Sura Nrinaraka, Tatrapi Eka Kasho Rajan, Vidyante Gatayastrida, Yadai Kai Kataro Nyabayam, Yadai Kai Kataro Nyabyam, Swabhava Upahanyate, Satyam Rajas Tama Iti, Tisra Sura Nrinaraka, Tatrapi Ekakaisho Rajan, Vidyante Gatayastrida, Yadai Kai Kataro Nyavyam, Sabhava Upahanyate. Others? Sattvam Rajas Tama Iti, Tashisura Nrinaka, Tatrapya Ekai Kaisho Rajan, Vidyante Gatayastrida, Yadai Kai Kataro Nyavyam, Sabhava Upahantyate, Satyam Rajas Tama Iti, Tisra Sura Nrinaraka, Vidyante Gatayastrida, Yadai Kai Kataro Nyabyam, Swabhava Upahanyate, Sattvam Rajas Tama Iti, Tishrasuranrinarakaha Tatrapi ekaikasho rajan Vidyante yatayastrida Yadaikai kataron yabyam Swabhava upahanyate Satyam rajas tamaiti Tisrasuran rinakara Tatrapi ekakaisho rajan Vidyante gatayaschita Yadaikai kato nyabayam Swabhava upahanyate Satyam, the mode of goodness. Raja, the mode of passion. Tama, the mode of darkness. Iti, thus. Tisra, the three. Sura, demigod. Nri, human being. Naraka, one who is suffering hellish conditions. Tatra api, even there. Ekai kasha, another. Rajan, O king. Vidyante, divide in two. Gataya, movements. Trida, three. Yada, at that time. Ekaika tara, one in relation with. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. According to the different modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of darkness, there are three different living creatures who are known as demigods, human beings, and hellish living entities. O king, even a particular mode of nature being mixed with the other two is divided into three, and thus each kind of living entity is influenced by other modes and acquires its habits also. Repeat after me. According to the different modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of darkness, there are different living creatures who are known as demigods, human beings, and hellish living entities. O king, even a particular mode of nature, being mixed with the other two, is divided into three, and thus each kind of living creature is influenced by other modes and acquires its habits also. When I read the verse just now, all of a sudden all these other things come to, I notice many other things that I noticed during preparation. So it's interesting how the Bhagavatam, it reveals itself to you. It like opens the Chit Shakti in your heart, and it's new and fresh every time you partake of it. New information comes out. Purport. The living entities individually are being conducted by a particular mode of nature, but at the same time there is every chance of being influenced by the other two. Generally, all conditioned souls in this material engagement are influenced by the mode of passion because every one of them is trying to lord it over the material nature to fulfill his individual desire. But in spite of the individual mode of passion, there is always chance of being influenced by the other modes of nature by association. Association is so important. It's so absolutely important because whoever we do associate with, they rub off on us. Even if we're resisting their influence, even there's annoyance in the resistance. Still in every case there's some kind of influence that happens. So we were just discussing, Yugala and I, this morning about the law of physics that I had learned from a physics teacher, actually. It's called the law of equilibration. And whenever you associate, it's just like batteries. When the batteries are, say you have a big flashlight and there's many batteries in that flashlight, if you have one that's completely filled and maybe the other two, one is empty and the other is half full, what happens with the law of physics or the law of equilibration is that full battery pushes its energy into the other two till all of them are equal. It's the law of equilibration, and it means just like water, it finds its own level and it just comes down. It's not like some of the molecules are up here and some of them are, no, water just finds its own level. So association is so very important in this world. If we associate with those that are more advanced, we become more advanced just by their association. And there's a kind of a Hawaiian little cliche that say, we with them. And it's like, what it means is like, okay, see, these are elite celebrity people and we're with them, so treat us nicely. And because we're Prabhupads and we're following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada by his qualification, we are getting mercy. By the qualification, the mercy of Lord Nityananda and the eternal spiritual master, we're getting this Agyata Sukriti. He is giving us the adhikar, or the qualification, to even understand this at all. So that the law of equilibration, that mercy is being bestowed upon us like anything. So we have to be careful who we associate with. It's like the most important thing is like association. And that's why we want to associate with the temple devotees, because they're fully engaged in devotional service, cent per cent. And even we have to be careful in the temple to control our mind and our words. So our association is about Krishna. So if one is in good association, he can develop the mode of goodness, but if bad association, he may develop the mode of darkness or ignorance. Nothing is stereotyped. One can change his habit by good or bad association, and one has to become intelligent enough to discriminate between good and bad. And as we develop as children, I think the very first thing is we're tasting and we're possessing. We become possessive as little 2-year-olds. Mine, that's a big thing, mine. And then we start learning, well, maybe asserting this strong will is not a good idea because we're trained by our parents. So we start to discriminate good from bad. And you can see in this picture, there's all different kinds of mentalities that even correlate with the animal species. So we don't want to glide down into hellish life. We want to be progressing up towards Krishna at all times, to always remember him and never, ever forget him. Those are the two most important things. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. So the best association is the service of the devotees of the Lord, and by that association one can become the highest qualified man by the grace of the Lord's pure devotees. So we associate with Srila Prabhupada's books, with the written word, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. We are continuously associating with Srila Prabhupada by doing the service that he's taught us and by reading his books. And as we have already seen in the life of Srila Narada Muni, he became the topmost devotee of the Lord simply by the association of pure devotees of the Lord. By birth, he was the son of a maidservant and had no knowledge of his father and no academic education, even of the lowest status. but simply by associating with the devotees and by eating the remnants of foodstuffs, he gradually developed the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Here he is at the hermitage. So fortunate, by the mercy of the devotees, we become purified. They give us so much blessed life. By such association, his taste for chanting and hearing the transcendental glories of the Lord became prominent. And because the glories of the Lord are non-different from the Lord, he got direct association with the Lord by means of sound representation. And then everywhere he goes, he's chanting the names of Krishna. He's telling the absolute truth. And sometimes he's even telling some truth that may be based on news. He's like the kind of the original internet was Narada Muni. He'd go here and there and he'd drop a bomb to try to get things moving. And it was always the truth. Similarly, there is the life of Ajamil in the 6th canto, who was the son of a Brahmin and was educated and trained properly in the discharge of the duties of a Brahmin, but who, in spite of all this, because he contacted the bad association of a prostitute, was put into the path of the lowest quality of Chandala, or the last position for a human being. See, he was there, he just spied this amorous embrace going on. We have to be so careful what we expose ourselves to. Even, Shobari Muni, who was underneath the ocean because of an offense to Garuda, he ended up falling down. He saw 2 fish copulating. And just by that moment's association he became mad after he wanted sex life. So we have to be so careful too and not offend devotees, because by offending devotees, it sets us up to have to take a humble position. And by force rather than naturally. We want to naturally take the humble position. Therefore, the Bhagavatam always recommends the association of the Mahat, or the great soul, for opening the gate of salvation. To associate with persons engaged in lording it over the material world means to enter into the darkest region of hell. One should try to raise himself by the association of the great soul. That is the way of the perfection of life. And that's what we're going towards, the perfection of life, to understand our relationship with Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti says the results of action are good, bad, and mixed, because the gunas are sattva, rajas, and tamas. Men become devatas, humans, and inhabitants of hell. O king, these 3 types of beings are again divided into 3 when the natures mix with the other gunas. How did he create these beings? The result of actions are 3. Those giving good results, kushala, those giving suffering, akushala, and those giving mixed result, misra. This indicates that the jivas attain these results according to their individual actions. There is no fault in the Creator. This is the answer to the question that Parikshit asked, O Brahman, speak about the progress of time with large and small divisions in the number and types of destinations achieved by action. And this is a funny little meme I saw on the internet where karma, it's like they say that any activity, like even the fluttering of a butterfly's wings, it affects the environment, it affects everything. So whatever we do, we should be very mindful, like picking trash up off the ground and making sure it gets disposed of properly, keeping things clean, just keeping our life in the mode of goodness. The cause of these results is the gunas. The result of sattva guna is a devata body. Beautiful body with great facility, lives a long, long time, can do so many amazing things, but still is temporary, still temporary. The result of rajas is a human body. The result of tamas is hellish existence. These 3 results are subdivided into 3 each to make 9 results. Each of the three is mixed with each of the other two. So there's an array of bodies, 8,400,000 species of life to suit your, like what mode would you like to try on this life? Oh, there's a wide variety. We have a huge variety. Krishna organizes things in such a way that whatever you want, you can get. If you want sex life, you get a pigeon. How many times in an hour? I forget. Some huge amount of times in an hour, if that's what you want, sex life. If you want eating indiscriminately, you can have a hog body. They can eat stool and like it and actually enjoy it. So, and that's great facility that you can enjoy practically any kind of food stuff in the hog body and not even get sick. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want only Krishna, God. Thus a human with rajas, by a mixture with a great amount of sattva, becomes a Brahmin, and by mixture with a great amount of tamas becomes a Sudra. And I, right away I thought, oh my goodness, Bhagavad Gita is Krishna, he's speaking, and in the chapter 14 is the modes of material nature. So I read chapter 14 just to get a little revisor course, and then I thought, oh, I'm going to go right. I'm going to concentrate on the end. The end result is once we transcend the modes, it's like that's because we want solution. If we can become very expert at cataloging, like all the different types of bodies and what exact gunas they are and how it plays itself out, or we could just skip to like fantastic and go straight for Bhagavat, straight for the end result of how I can get out of these modes. So I just wanted to read, there's from 18 to 27, it's pretty much the wrap up. There's 27 shlokas in the 14th chapter. And text 18, it says, those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live in the earthly planets, and those in the abominable world of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Now, Krishna himself is saying this to Arjuna. That's the thing about Bhagavad Gita. Krishna himself is speaking to his best friend. Bhagavat, we've got different instances where Bhagavat is being spoken by Maharaj Parikshit, also in the assembly at Naimisharanya. There are little different scenarios, but Bhagavad Gita is Krishna speaking to his friend. I mean, it's like if we want any information, we go straight to the Cliff Note version of Bhagavad Gita. And text 19, it says, when one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. Now we're talking. For the devotee, we want out. We want out of these modes. We do not want to be controlled by anger. We do not want to be controlled by lust. We want freedom. We want out of the mess and into Krishna consciousness. Text 20, it says, when the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Text 21, Arjuna inquired, oh, my dear Lord, by which symptom is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior and how does he transcend these modes of nature? That's what we want to hang out with, those guys. We want them to be our friends. Those that are transcendental to the modes of nature. Text 22 through 25, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, we're all ears now, the son of Pandu, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal towards the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes of material nature. This is a really good description of an Uttama Adhikari, one who has equal vision, sees everyone and everything equally, is equally disposed in happiness and distress. This is not easy in this age. Right now, we're being inundated with this invisible enemy, and we're being inundated with polarizing political jargon. I was just saying to my mother the other day, if the Martians attacked, we might humans get together and be friends again and say, oh, we have a common enemy. We're always polarizing, and if we could just figure out a way to get together and be equally disposed in happiness and distress and see everyone equally, there wouldn't be so much chaos and quarrel in this world. Then I immediately thought of Upadeshamrita and the first sloka in Upadeshamrita, which opened this whole world to me, because if we can just do that one shloka, which is, and every single day Maharaj, he chants that shloka. Can you chant it for us? Vacho Vegamana. Oh, etan veganyo vishaheta dira sarvam apamam pritivam sa shishat. And I wanted us to go through the word for word because it's powerful. Vacham, of speech. Vegam, urge. Manasa, of the mind. Krodha, of anger. Vegam, urge. Jiva, of the tongue. Vegam, urge. Again and again we're saying urge. Udara upasta, of the belly and genitals. Vegam, urge. Etan, these. Vegam, urges. Again, we have to tolerate our own urges. This is becoming very, you see how many times that word is used. Whoever vishaheta can tolerate, dira, sober, sarvam, all, api, certainly, imam, this, pritvim, world, sa, that personally, shishyat, can make disciples. So translation, a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. They're good association. They can control themselves. They don't try to control anyone else. They're very good association. So in that, I wanted to go back to the very last verse in that particular Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, which is the modes of material nature. And he sums it all up by saying, I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. This is what it's all about, is we're wanting to realize the absolute truth. And if anything is distracting us from realizing the absolute truth, taking us away, dragging us into some ego defense mechanism, we just lost our humanity. We just went into an animal mindset. So we should immediately disengage from that person and work on controlling ourselves rather than react to them. Because sometimes I'll come back with some little snide comment instead of disengaging and controlling my own self. And the purport is really long, so I've only got a few of the bits of the purport in it because it's fabulous. I highly recommend Upadeshamrita because it is the nectar of instruction, the how-to manual. And it is, of all the books that we sell from the BBT, it is the book that is sold to many, many religious institutions all over the world, because they are using it as a how-to manual to advance spiritually. Purport: one must first control his speaking power. Every one of us has the power of speech. As soon as we get an opportunity, we begin to speak. If we do not speak about Krishna consciousness, we speak about all sorts of nonsense. A toad in a field speaks by croaking, and similarly, everyone who has a tongue wants to speak, even if all he has to say is nonsense. The croaking of the toad, however, simply invites the snake, please come here and eat me. Nevertheless, although it is inviting death, the toad goes on croaking. The positive use of speech. Prahlad Maharaj was preaching to his young constituency, his friends. He was saying, don't worry, all this playing business, and you must think of Krishna now. It's very important. You must hear about Krishna. You must understand your relationship with Krishna. So Prahlad, even though he was very young, he was sharing Krishna consciousness. He was even preaching to his own father, who was super inimical. The talking of materialistic men and impersonalist Mayavadi philosophers may be compared to the croaking of the frogs. This is Professor Frog here. They're always speaking nonsense and thus inviting death to catch them. Controlling speech, however, does not mean self-imposed silence, the external process of man. No, we have to control our speech by remembering Krishna and vibrating Krishna's names and pastimes. That's the best way of controlling speech. Silence may appear helpful for some time, but ultimately it proves a failure. The meaning of controlled speech conveyed by Srila Rupa Goswami advocates the positive process of Krishna Katha, engaging the speaking process in glorifying the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. The tongue can thus glorify the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord. If we think of one quality of Krishna today and all day just share something about one quality of Krishna, maybe he's a jokester. We could take one quality of Krishna and just think about it all day long and think of all the pastimes about Krishna and how he would play jokes, or something like that. We control our mind and we could share about the pastimes. I know when I was being raised in Krishna consciousness by Jai Shri, I used to call her Jai Shri Maharaj. She would always read, and then she'd tell me what she read about. And it was like, I just loved being around her because she was always telling me something about Krishna. So that's really good association. She would sneak and read scripture under the covers at night with a flashlight. She was really wonderful. So the preacher of Krishna Katha is always beyond the clutches of death. This is the significance of controlling the urge to speak. The restlessness or fickleness of the mind, mano vega, is controlled when one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhyam 2:31 says, Krishna sura sama mayaha ya andhakara yahan Krishna tahan nahi mayara adhikara. Krishna is just like the sun and Maya is just like darkness. If the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Similarly, if Krishna is present in the mind, there is no possibility of the mind's being agitated by Maya's influence. The yogic process of negating all material thoughts will not help. To try to create a vacuum in the mind is artificial. The vacuum will not remain. However, if one always thinks of Krishna and how to serve Krishna best, one's mind will naturally be controlled. And this mind, my father was on his deathbed, and he had been retired 12 years, and still in this kind of coma position he was in. He thought he was at the job, and he was said, bring my clipboard, we're putting the driveway over here. And I said, Dad, you've been retired 12 years. And I thought, Prabhupada, you're so kind, because we've been taught deity worship, chanting. We have rituals that we're becoming addicted to. The most positive form of addiction is to be addicted to rituals in devotion to Krishna. We can have rituals that'll take us down the tubes of hellishness, rituals of shooting drugs or crazy, terrible things that can take us down to the hellish conditions of life. But Prabhupada has given us this beautiful, healthy life of addiction to Krishna through these lovely, lovely rituals that he's gifted us. Similarly, anger can be controlled. We cannot stop anger altogether, but if we simply become angry with those who blaspheme the Lord or the devotees of the Lord, we control our anger in Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry with the miscreant brothers Jagai and Madhai, who blasphemed and struck Nityananda Prabhu. In his Shikshashtakam, Lord Chaitanya wrote, Srinadapi Sunichena Taroapi Sahisnana. One should be humbler than the grass and more tolerant than the tree. One may then ask why the Lord exhibited his anger. The point is that one should be ready to tolerate all insults to his own self. So that's the situation. If it's an insult to me, we tolerate. If it's an insult to a devotee or Krishna, we don't. That's how we discriminate what should be tolerated and what should not be tolerated. When Krishna or the pure devotees is blasphemed, a genuine devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offenders. Krodha, anger, cannot be stopped, but it can be applied rightly. It was in anger that Hanuman set fire to Lanka, and he is worshipped as the greatest devotee of Lord Ramachandra. This means that he utilized his anger in the right way. Arjuna serves as another example. He was not willing to fight, but Krishna incited his anger. You must fight. To fight without anger is not possible. Anger is controlled. However, when utilized in the service of the Lord. So, if we're compelled, we should just immediately take a little kind of an inventory. Am I reacting out of ego? Is this an insult to me? Or is this an insult to Krishna and the devotees? As far as the urges of the tongue, we all experience that the tongue wants to eat palatable dishes. I know yesterday was magnificent. Magnificent. Generally, we should not allow the tongue to eat according to its choice, but should control the tongue by supplying prasad. The devotee's attitude is that we will eat only when Krishna gives him prasad. That is the way to control the urge of the tongue. One should take prasad at scheduled times and should not eat in restaurants or sweetmeat shops simply to satisfy the whims of the tongue or belly. If we stick to the principle of taking only prasad, the urges of the belly and the tongue can be controlled. And we will be saying the prasadam prayer really soon, and it is like, boy, we're being blessed with prasad. That's the next thing. One of my favorite prayers is the prasadam prayer. So in a similar manner, the urges of the genitals, the sex impulse, can be controlled when not used unnecessarily. The genitals should be used to beget a Krishna-conscious child. Otherwise, they should not be used. The Krishna consciousness movement encourages marriage not for the satisfaction of the genitals, but for the begetting of Krishna-conscious children. As soon as the children are a little grown up, they are sent to our Gurukula, where they are trained to become full Krishna-conscious devotees. Many such Krishna-conscious children are required, and one who is capable of bringing forth Krishna-conscious offspring is allowed to utilize genitals. The conclusion is that only when we talk about devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can we refrain from useless, nonsensical talk. We should always endeavor to use our speaking power solely for the purpose of realizing Krishna. So it's not that we negate and we don't do, we are doing, but we're doing everything in relation to Krishna. We're using our words in relation to Krishna. We're even using our anger in relation only to Krishna. So all of these things are going on, but if it's Krishna-centric, then it's properly utilized. Are there any questions or comments? Haribo, Lalit Krishna.
You were talking about the croaking toad, and that reminds me of the kid growing up in the 70s. They had a green frog that was copying his leaf. He goes, "Hi-ho, it's Kermit the Frog."
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Good time.
Jai O. Any other comments or questions, Adi? Yeah, if we think of one quality of Krishna today and think of it all day long. Funny Krishna, yes, the Krishna had a real sense of humor. Definitely. Definitely. Transcendental jokester. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So let us all chant one of our favorite prayers. Sarira Vijaja Jodan